Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be talking through some player props I like on Prizepicks for the Week 1 college football slate. We finally have the full Saturday slate of games coming up. I'm recording this video on Friday afternoon, so I'm recording this the day before. Going to try and get this video out to you guys, obviously, before these games start on Saturday. We've had some games this week. On Thursday we had some games. We have some games on Friday night. I did videos for those. But now we finally have the full Saturday slate, bunch of games on Saturday, some big time matchups as well. Got a top 5 matchup between Ohio State and Texas, a top 10 matchup between Clemson and LSU. There's some other big games mixed in there as well, but it's going to be a fun slate of college football, guys. I'm super excited for this. The start of the college football season. It's finally here. I've got some player props I do like for these games on Saturday. Got 4 plays that I'm going to give out in this video, and as always, we're going to break down these plays and share why I like them. Now, before we do get started, make sure that you guys hit that like button down below if you enjoy these Prizepicks videos. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well. And if you guys are new to the channel and if you are new to Prizepicks, if you don't have a Prizepicks account, make sure that you go sign up. Use that promo code NOAH. When you do sign up for Prizepicks with my promo code, play $5, you're going to get $50 instantly in free lineups added to your account. So Prizepicks is going to give you $50 worth of free lineups just for playing $5. And again, you get access to that when you sign up with code NOAH. So check them out if you have not yet. And also, we do have a partnership with Sleeper, so I do want to give a quick shout out to Sleeper. You guys can go download the Sleeper app, use promo code NOAH over there, and you'll get your first deposit matched up to $100. So whatever you put in, Sleeper will match it up to $100. If you want to deposit $100, they'll give you an additional $100 to play with. So now you got a $200 bankroll to work with. You can try and start to build up that bankroll over on Sleeper. But again, guys, if you don't have an account on Sleeper, download that app, use the promo code NOAH, get that deposit bonus. And for those of you that are unaware what Sleeper is, they're just a DFS pick'em app, very similar to Prizepicks, where you pick more or less on player props, player projections. You build out your lineup. You can do up to an 8-pick lineup on Sleeper. You can mix and match sports, and you can win up to 100x your money. And Sleeper also does offer college football. So, I'm sure if you're watching this video, you're interested in college football, you can do college football plays over on Sleeper. So check them out, guys. And again, use that code NOAH when you sign up. But let's talk about some plays that I do like for today on Saturday, for the slate on Saturday. Again, I'm recording this video the day before on Friday afternoon. But I wanted to go ahead and get this video out, give you guys some plays I like for these games on Saturday. So let's go ahead and break them down. So the first prop that I like for today is going to be a pass attempts prop. And we're going to take Steve Angeli for more than 27.5 pass attempts. Now, Angeli transferred over from Notre Dame. He's going to be the starting quarterback for Syracuse this season. And last season, Syracuse was a super, super pass-heavy offense. They had one of the highest pass rates in the country. They were up there with teams like Colorado, Rice, San Jose State, teams that love to pass the ball. Last year, Syracuse had about a 60% pass rate, close to that. In terms of pass attempts per game, they had 42.5 pass attempts per game. Now, sure, different quarterback last year. They have Kyle McCord. But I think we could still see this Syracuse team be similar this year, where they're just a super pass-heavy offense. They lost their top running back, LaQuint Allen. He's went on to the NFL, so I think this is a spot where Angeli is going to be forced to throw a bunch, because if you look at the spot here going on the road to Tennessee, Syracuse, they're underdogs in this game. I think they're like 2 touchdown underdogs. 13.5 point spread going on the, or actually, excuse me, they're not going on the road. This game's being played in Atlanta at the Falcon Stadium, so it's actually technically not a road game for Syracuse. It's a neutral site. Excuse me on my part, but still, they're 13.5 point dogs in this game. So this is a spot where they're probably going to be forced to throw. And if you look at Angeli's pass yards prop, his pass yards prop is set at like 240 and a half. I have a hard time seeing him get anywhere close to that unless he has 28 pass attempts. Maybe there's a chance he connects on some deep balls and he's really efficient, but you would think his efficiency in this matchup against Tennessee is probably not going to be the best. But I think the volume is definitely going to be there, and that's definitely what we want to bet on in this spot, is bet on the volume, bet on the pass attempts, and I think that's what we're going to see in a game where Syracuse is likely going to be playing from behind and forced to throw. I think the one concern that I have is, with Syracuse being big dogs in this game, maybe they're not as efficient moving the ball down the field. They can't sustain drives, and they're just going 3 and out every possession. As long as they keep it within like a couple of touchdowns, though, as long as they don't just get their doors blown off, I think there's a very good chance Angeli's going to have more than 27.5 pass attempts, just given how this game script is likely going to play out for Syracuse most likely playing from behind against a fairly good Tennessee team. So I do like this as our first play for today. Going to take Steve Angeli for more than 27.5 pass attempts. Now, our next prop is going to be a fantasy score. And for those of you that may be new to Prizepicks does do fantasy score for pretty much all their sports or almost all their sports. And if you don't know what fantasy score is, it's basically just like fantasy football scoring. You can actually click scoring chart, you can scroll down, and you can see how fantasy points are calculated. It's the same scoring system that they use for NFL. It's full PPR, so you get a point per reception, and then everything else is pretty similar to what you would see from a standard like fantasy football league. Pass yards, 0.4 for every yard. Passing touchdowns, 4 points. Interceptions, you lose 1. Rushing yards, 10 rushing yards is 1 point. It's self-explanatory. If you've ever played fantasy football before, you know how this is calculated. So, and there's definitely an edge with fantasy score. I've said this a lot because these are lines that Prizepicks has to create themselves. They can't copy these lines from sportsbooks like yards. These are lines that sportsbooks put out. You can just copy directly what the sportsbooks has, but I don't think there's any sports books out there that do fantasy score lines. Fantasy scores are really only on DFS apps like Prizepicks. And there's a couple fantasy score lines that I do like for these games on Saturday. The first one that we're going to take is Braylon Braxton, and we're going to take him for more than 15.5 fantasy score. So Braylon Braxton is the quarterback for Southern Miss, and Southern Miss, they're going to be playing at home here against Mississippi State. They are pretty big dogs in this game. They're 13.5-point dogs. But even with them being dogs in this game, I think we're going to see them in a spot where they're probably going to be forced to throw. Now, Braylon Braxton, as a passer, he's definitely probably going to need some improvement. He threw for 1,600 yards last year. He was pretty good at not turning the ball over, though. Only had 2 interceptions. Now, sure, the competition last year was not nearly as same, going up against Mississippi State. Like, last year, they were facing teams like Appalachian State, Georgia Southern, Georgia State. Like, these obviously are not the same level of opponents as Mississippi State, but Mississippi State really wasn't that good either last year. Their pass defense was pretty bad as well. Mississippi State did give up over 245 pass yards per game last season. They were very beatable through the air. And Braxton, although he may not be the most, polished passer, he is a mobile quarterback. He is a dual threat guy. He did run for 610 yards last year and also had 4 rushing touchdowns. He's a quarterback that can give you fantasy points as a passer and as a runner, which is super valuable. And if we just look at his projections for these games on Saturday, so his pass yards prop is set at 205.5. So let's say he throws for 200 yards, that's going to be 8 fantasy points. And then he has a rush yards prop of 32.5. Let's say he runs for 30 yards, that's an additional 3 fantasy points. And then you have to think about touchdowns. He's favored to throw 1 touchdown here. If he throws 1 touchdown, that's 4 more fantasy points. If he throws, they just removed one of our props, Steve Angeli pass attempts, so that's annoying. I guess we'll just keep going with the rest of the video, but that's the joys of playing on Prizepicks is you can find plays with good value, try and get them out to you guys on YouTube, and then they get taken off the board. But let's just continue with the video, talk about the rest of the plays I like. So with Braxton, again, projected for about 200 yards, 8 fantasy points, projected for about 30 rush yards, 3 fantasy points. And then if he throws 1 touchdown, that's 4 more fantasy points. So that puts him right around 15 fantasy points, which is just right around this line. But then you got to think, maybe he throws another touchdown. Maybe he gets a rushing touchdown. Again, he did have 4 rushing touchdowns last year. Maybe he throws for more than 200 yards, or he runs for more than 30 yards. So there's just a lot of ways where he can get over this fantasy score line. He was very good at going over this line last year. As you can see, again, level of opponent not the same, but I don't think this matchup against Mississippi State is that bad. I like that Southern Miss is playing at home as well. I think with Southern Miss playing at home, it's more likely that this game isn't just a complete blowout and that they keep this competitive. So I do like that as our first prop or technically it would be our second prop, but one of them got taken off the board. But this will be our first prop for today. Braylon Braxton, more than 15.5 fantasy score. Now, the next prop that I like is on Marcel Reed. And we're going to take Marcel Reed for more than 9.5 rush attempts. So Marcel Reed's the starting quarterback for Texas A&M. He was not technically the starter last year. They started Connor Wegman last season, but then I think Wegman either got hurt or got benched like early on in the season, and they went with Reed. And then there was a stretch where they went back to Wegman. They were kind of flip-flopping quarterbacks last year, but in the games that Marcel Reed did start and where he played the full game, he went over this rush attempts line in a large majority of those games. Against Florida, he had 13 rush attempts. He started that game. Against Bowling Green, he had 12 rush attempts. Against Arkansas, he had 10. Against South Carolina, he had 16. Against New Mexico State, he only had 4, but then he had 21 rush attempts against Auburn, 14 against Texas, and then he had 9 against USC. So a large majority of the games that Reed started last year and played the whole game, he went over this rush attempts line. He is a dual threat quarterback. He does offer rushing upside. As you can see, he has a 44.5 rush yards line, so the sports books, they're expecting him to be running in this spot. And you have to remember with college football, you do lose yards for sacks. So if a quarterback gets sacked, that does count as negative rush yards, but it also counts as a rush attempt. So if Reed gets sacked a couple times, which seems unlikely that he's going to get sacked in this matchup against UTSA, this is a spot where Texas A&M are pretty big favorites, and I think that's my only concern with this prop is this could definitely be one of those spots where like Texas A&M has a huge lead and they're kind of able to take their foot off the gas pedal. Like right now they're favored by 22.5. That's technically that's like my one concern here is that if Texas A&M gets a huge lead, maybe they pull their starters late in the game. But I think as long as the game's within like 2 or 3 touchdowns, Reed's going to be out there for the whole game. And again, he's a dual threat quarterback. He ran a lot last year when he played. I think with rush attempts, I do like this rush attempts line just a little bit more because, again, if he takes some sacks, obviously those count as negative rush yards. It also counts as rush attempts, though. So let's say he has like 8 design runs or 8 scrambles or whatever it may be. Maybe they call like 4 design runs for him. Maybe he has like 4 scrambles, and then maybe he gets sacked twice. Well, that still would be 10 rush attempts. So give me Marcel Reed for more than 9.5 rush attempts here. Just think the line's a little bit low on Reed, who again showed to be a very mobile quarterback when he played last year. And now our third and final prop, we're going to go back to another fantasy score line, and we're going to go to the Clemson-LSU game, one of the big games this week. And the fantasy score line that I do like in this game is Bryant Wesco for more than 10.5 fantasy score. So this is a game that I think has a lot of shootout potential. If you look at the total in this game, this total is set at 57.5, which for college football, you'll see totals like over 60. There's even been games with like 70 totals in college football history. This is a game, though, that does have a pretty high total, 57.5. These are two teams that I think do offer like explosive offenses. These are two very experienced quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier and Kay Klubnik, two guys that do like to throw the ball down the field. And if we look at the projections on Kay Klubnik, I mean, the sportsbooks, they're expecting Klubnik to be doing a lot of throwing in this game because he has a 271.5 pass yards prop. He has a 35.5 pass attempts line. So he's probably going to be throwing the ball like 30 plus times here. And this Clemson team, they did lose their top tight end, Jake Briningstool. He went to the NFL. They still have most of their wide receivers, though. Pretty much all their wide receivers, Antonio Williams, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco, obviously. These guys all return. They all played on the team last year. At running back, though, they did lose Phil Maffa to the NFL, and they're actually starting Adam Randall, who was a wide receiver last year. Randall started off the season as a wide receiver, and then after Phil Maffa got injured, they basically just started using Randall as a running back. So they're technically using a wide receiver as a running back this season. So I don't know how much Clemson's going to be running the ball. We'll see. I mean, just like based off reports that I've seen, reading articles and stuff, they seem to have a lot of confidence in Adam Randall as the starting running back. But it is a little odd to see them using a wide receiver, turning him into a running back. But they have their top wide receivers all from last year. This is a team that's very deep. They've got a ton of talent, and they've got an explosive offense that can move the ball down the field. And this is a game that I think does have a lot of shootout potential, so there could be a lot of points scored here. And the reason that I like this line on Wesco, if we just kind of look at his projections for this game, his yards projection is set at 56.5. So that, if he gets like 50, 60 yards, that basically gives him about 5 or 6 fantasy points. And then you got to think, Prizepicks, it is a full PPR scoring system, so you do get a point for every reception a receiver gets, and I think Wesco's pretty likely to get at least like 3 or 4 catches here. His 2.5 receptions line is a goblin, which means it's heavily favored to go over. So he's favored for 3 receptions. I think there's a good chance he gets like 3 or 4 catches. Let's say he gets 50 yards and 3 catches. Well, that's 9 fantasy points, and then you got to factor in he could maybe score a touchdown. I think last year Wesco, even as a sophomore last year, he did have 5 touchdowns last season. So he was, found the end zone a bunch last year. Even as a sophomore, you would think he's going to take that third-year leap here, or technically that second-year leap because he didn't play much as a freshman, I don't think. But he'll take that second-year leap, be even better this season. Super talented wide receiver. Clemson team that has an explosive offense. There's just a lot of reasons that I like this fantasy score line on Bryant Wesco. And then also something that I like to do is I like to compare Prizepicks fantasy scores to Underdog. Underdog's another DFS site that does fantasy scores for college football. And right now, Underdog has their line on Wesco set at 10.95, but Underdog is half-point PPR, so you only get half a point per reception on Prizepicks. You get a full point per reception, or excuse me, a half point per reception on Underdog, but you get a full point per reception on Prizepicks. So not only are we getting a better line than what Underdog has, we're also getting better scoring because we're getting a full point per reception compared to half a point. So there's just a lot of reasons that I like this fantasy score line on Bryant Wesco. But yeah, that's going to be our 3 plays for today, guys. Again, we had 4 plays. One of them was on Steve Angeli pass attempts, but that line, it looks like, got taken off the board. So we're just going to roll with these 3 plays. As always, though, I appreciate you guys watching these Prizepicks videos, supporting the Prizepicks content. If you guys do want more Prizepicks plays from me, I do give Prizepicks plays out over on Patreon pretty much every single day for college football, for MLB. We got NFL coming up. We got NBA in a few months as well. I'm always posting Prizepicks plays on Patreon, so if you want more Prizepicks plays from me, be sure to go check out the Patreon linked down below in the description. But as always, guys, appreciate you watching. Make sure to hit that like button down below if you enjoy these Prizepicks videos. Hit that subscribe button as well. And go sign up for Prizepicks. Use that promo code NOAH when you do. Get those free $50 worth of lineups when you play your first $5 lineup. But as always, guys, good luck, and I'll see you in the next video.